My son ordered me to sign the deed to my house like it was a favor I owed him. He said his wife had nothing. He said she deserved it. He slid the property deed across the table and waited, already certain I would do what he asked. I remember staring at the paper and realizing how easily love can be mistaken for permission. My name is Maribel Shaw. I am 62. I bought my house with money I earned over decades of steady work and careful choices. I paid every bill on time. I learned to live within what I had. The house became my proof that stability was something you could build with patience. It was the place where I slept without fear, where I believed nothing could be taken from me without my consent. Family has always leaned on me. I was the reliable one, the one who stepped in when things went wrong. I never complained about it. I told myself, strength was just another way to show love. Over time, that belief settled into my bones. I thought it made me safe. When my son called and asked me to come over to talk, his voice sounded careful, not angry, not warm either, just measured. I didn't think much of it. I assumed he needed advice or reassurance, the way he always had. I didn't know he had already decided what my answer should be. I didn't know the conversation had been planned before I arrived. I walked into that evening carrying the same trust I always had, still believing my home was the one thing no one could reach through me. I raised my son on my own for most of his childhood. His father drifted in and out until drifting out became permanent. I worked, adjusted, learned how to be steady even when I was tired. I told myself independence was something you model, not something you announce. He used to call me his anchor. "You always figure things out," he'd say. Smiling the way he knew I liked. I believed him. I wanted to. As he grew older, that smile stayed, but something else settled in behind it. Expectation. Not spoken at first, just assumed. "Mom, can you help me this month? Mom, you're better at paperwork. Mom, you don't really need that much space, do you?" Each time, I found a reason to say yes. He was starting out. He was under pressure. He had responsibilities now. I told myself this was what being a good mother looked like when your child was grown, but still leaning. When he married, I tried to step back. I told myself he had a new family now. Still, when things went wrong, he called me first. "You're the only one who really understands me," he said once, after an argument with his wife. I answered without hesitation. I always did. Looking back, I see how often I softened his edges for him, how quickly I filled the gaps so he never had to sit with discomfort. I confused love with relief. If he felt better, I felt useful. By the time he invited me over to talk, I already knew my role without thinking about it. Listen, reassure, fix what could be fixed. I walked in, ready to carry whatever weight he placed in my hands, still believing that was what mothers were meant to do. Dinner was already on the table when I arrived. My son didn't ask if I was hungry. He pulled out a chair and said, "Sit, we should talk while the food's still warm." His wife was there too, Leela. She smiled at me. Small and careful, the way people do when they want to appear harmless. She stayed quiet, hands folded in her lap, eyes lowered. "We've been under a lot of stress," my son said, pouring himself a drink. "You know how things are right now." "I know," I said. "That's why I came." He nodded, as if that settled something. "This isn't about money," he added quickly. "It's about family doing what family's supposed to do." Lila's voice was soft when she finally spoke. "I hate that it has to be like this," she said, not looking at me. "I never wanted to be a burden. I waited for someone to tell me what this was actually about. No one did." "You've always been practical," my son continued. "You don't get emotional about things the way other people do. That's why I knew you'd understand." "Understand what?" He reached under the table, then paused, his hand resting there a moment longer than necessary. We just need to be honest tonight. He said, no drama, no misunderstandings. Lila let out a slow breath, as if bracing herself. I don't have anything of my own, she murmured. I've never really had security. The way he watched me then made my stomach tighten. Not anxious, expectant, as though my agreement was the final step in something already arranged. My son finally pulled his hand out from under the table. What he placed in front of me was not a letter or a folder. It was a single stack of papers, neatly clipped, already turned so I could read the top line. Just look at it, he said, before you react. I didn't touch it right away. The words property deed were clear enough from where I sat. My name was there. His wife's name was there too. This is my house, I said slowly. He nodded. For now, Lila shifted in her chair. I didn't ask him to do this, she said quickly. I just told him I was scared. I don't have anything if something goes wrong. She has nothing. My son said, firmer now. She deserves stability. You already have it. I picked up the papers. The language was dense, deliberate. Transfer of ownership, immediate effect. No mention of compensation beyond a symbolic amount that barely counted as a number. You want me to give her my home, I said. Not give, he corrected. Sign it over. It's cleaner that way. Cleaner for who? He exhaled. The way he used to when he thought I was being difficult. Mom, you live alone. You don't need all that space. You've said yourself it's more than you use. That doesn't make it available. Lila finally looked up at me. Her eyes were wet, but steady. I just want to feel safe. She said, I thought you'd understand. My son slid the pen across the table, placing it right on top of the deed. This doesn't have to be a big thing. He said, you sign, and we move forward, like a family. The pen rested there, closer to my hand than his. He leaned back in his chair and folded his arms, already waiting. Not asking, waiting. I pushed the pen away from me. Not far, just enough to say I wasn't ready. My son noticed immediately. His jaw tightened. Why are you making this harder than it has to be? I'm not making anything hard. I said, I'm trying to understand why you think this is mine to lose. He leaned forward. Because you always land on your feet. You always have. That doesn't mean I don't feel the fall. Lila's voice came in softly, almost apologetic. We wouldn't ask if we had another option. You didn't ask, I said. You decided. My son's tone shifted. The warmth dropped away. Mom, don't do this. We're talking about family. Family doesn't take. I said, family talks. He laughed once. Short and sharp. This is talking. You just don't like what you're hearing. Lila reached for his arm. Please, she said, turning to me. I know you think I'm weak, but I'm trying to protect my future. I never said you were weak. You don't have to, she replied. You have a house. I don't. My son seized on that. Exactly. You have security. She doesn't. What kind of mother watches that imbalance and does nothing? The word mother landed heavy. It always did. I raised you to stand on your own. I said, not to stand on me. He shook his head. You raised me to value family. That's what this is. What happens if I say no? I asked quietly. The room went still. He didn't answer right away. People will talk, he said finally. They always do. Especially when someone with means turns their back on their own. That sounds like a threat. It's reality, he said. You don't want to be seen as the kind of woman who chose a house over her son. Lila wiped at her eyes. I don't want this to come between us, she said, but I can't keep living like this. Something in me tightened. Not fear, recognition. They weren't asking for help. They were asking for compliance, for me to disappear quietly, so their life could feel easier. My son slid the pen back toward me. Closer this time. Sign it, he said. And we can stop making this ugly. I looked at the paper again. My name reduced to a line waiting to be crossed. My years of work flattened into a favor I was expected to grant. I didn't pick up the pen. I sat there longer than they expected. Not frozen, not confused, just still. My son shifted in his chair. You're overthinking this, he said. You've always done that. I didn't answer. My attention had drifted somewhere else, to a memory I hadn't visited in years. I was 29, working late nights, saving for a down payment that never happened because his car broke down. I handed over the money without hesitation. Told myself I could wait. I always could. I gave up plenty, I said finally, but I chose those moments. This isn't a choice you're offering. He frowned. What does that even mean? It means you're asking me to step out of my own life so yours feels more stable. Lila leaned forward. That's not fair. No, I said calmly. What's not fair is pretending this is temporary. Once I sign, I don't get my place back. I don't get my footing back. You can stay with us, my son said quickly, until you figure something out. I looked at him then. Really looked. You want me to become dependent on you. That's not what I said. That's exactly what you said. Silence settled between us. Not heavy. Clear. I spent years making sure you never felt displaced. I continued. I didn't realize I was training you to displace me. His voice hardened. So you're choosing a house over your family. I'm choosing myself. I said, for the first time without apologizing. Lila crossed her arms. You don't understand what it's like to have nothing. I do, I replied. I just built my way out of it. My son stood up. If you walk away from this, don't expect things to go back to normal. I don't want normal, I said. Normal is what brought us here. My hands rested on the table. Steady. The pen was still there, untouched. For the first time since I arrived, I wasn't weighing their reactions. I wasn't calculating how to soften the moment in which, I was deciding, I'm not signing anything tonight. I said, the words didn't shake. They didn't echo. They landed exactly where they needed to. My son stared at me as if waiting for the moment I would blink first. You're not signing, he said. More statement than question. Not tonight, I replied. That's not how this works. He said, we didn't set this up so you could stall. I folded my hands in front of me. You set it up. I showed up. He let out a breath through his nose. You think you're being careful. You're just being difficult. I've been careful my whole life. I said, just not in ways you noticed. Lila glanced between us. We don't have time for this, she said. We need an answer. You already have one. My son's voice sharpened. You always do this. You act calm, like you're above it, and then you pull away when people need you. I pull away when people try to take, I said, there's a difference. He stood, pacing once before stopping behind his chair. You don't understand what position you're putting us in. I understand more than you think. He scoffed. Since when? I met his eyes. Since I signed my first will. Since I learned what happens when you don't protect what you've built. Since I stopped believing love was supposed to be unsecured. That gave him pause. Just for a second, Lila broke the silence. This isn't a legal issue, she said. It's a family one. It became legal the moment you put my house on paper, I answered. My son looked at the clock on the wall, then back at me. We don't have all night. I do, I said, and I'm not in a hurry anymore. The quiet that followed stretched thin. No one moved. No one spoke. The pen lay untouched between us. And for the first time, waiting felt heavier for them than it did for me. The knock came once. Firm, not rushed. My son turned toward the sound. Irritation already on his face. We're in the middle of something, he called out. The door opened anyway. A man stepped in. Mid-40s, maybe. Calm posture. No hesitation. He glanced at me first, not at them. Maribel Shaw, he said. I'm Daniel Kerr, your attorney. The room shifted, not loudly. Just enough. My son straightened. This is a private family matter. Daniel set his briefcase on the table. It stopped being private when a property deed was used to apply pressure. Lila stood. She asked you to come here, I did. I said, not to argue, to witness. Daniel opened the briefcase and removed a single folder. He didn't rush. Maribel owns her home outright. Sole title. Any attempt to transfer ownership under coercion would be invalid and actionable. My son laughed. Sharp and defensive. Coercion is a strong word, not in this context, Daniel said evenly. Emotional pressure combined with dependency threats qualifies. That's ridiculous, Lila snapped. We didn't threaten anything. Daniel looked at her. You presented a pre-filled deed and demanded an immediate signature. That's enough. My son turned to me. You called a lawyer instead of talking to us. I talked. I said, you waited. Daniel slid the folder toward them. If this deed were signed, it could trigger tax consequences, future liability, and a permanent loss of housing for my client. There's also the matter of undue influence. Silence followed. Thick this time. You're blowing this out of proportion, my son said, but his voice wavered. Daniel didn't raise his voice. I'm keeping it proportional. The house is valued well over $500,000. No court would see this as a family favor. Lila's face tightened. So that's it. You're choosing paperwork over people. I'm choosing consent over pressure. I said. Daniel closed the folder. This conversation ends now. No documents will be signed. Any further attempt to pursue this will go through my office. My son looked at the pen still lying on the table. Then at me. The certainty he'd walked in with was gone. Daniel picked up his briefcase. Maribel, he said quietly, are you ready to leave? I stood. My legs didn't shake. Yes, I said. My son stepped in front of me before I could reach the door. His face had changed. Not angry exactly, stripped. So this is how you're doing it, he said. Running behind a lawyer, I'm leaving, I replied. That's all. You planned this, he said, turning to Daniel. You poisoned her against us. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. Lila laughed. Sharp and sudden. Unbelievable, she said. After everything we talked about, what did we talk about? I asked. You needing my house. Her eyes flashed. You act like you're the only one who's ever worked for anything. I acted like it was mine. I said, because it is. My son ran a hand through his hair. You don't care what happens to us now. I care. I said, I just don't surrender. That house was supposed to solve things, Lila said. We already told people. Told them what? I asked. That it was happening, she snapped. That you'd help. Like you always do. There it was. Not fear, expectation. My son looked at me again, searching for something softer. You're really walking away. I walked away the moment you decided for me. You raised me better than this, he said. I raised you to respect boundaries. I said, you chose not to hear that part. Lila crossed her arms. So what now? We just struggle while you sit in comfort. Daniel stepped forward then. This conversation is over. My son scoffed. You think this makes you strong? I think it makes me honest. I said. The room felt unfamiliar now. Smaller. Not because of the walls, but because the illusion holding it together had cracked. I moved past them without asking permission. No one tried to stop me. Behind me, I heard Lila say my name. Not pleading. Angry. I didn't turn around. Daniel walked me to my car. He didn't offer advice. He just said, I'll file a summary tonight. If they contact you again, forward it to me, I will, I said. I didn't hear from my son the next day. Or the day after that. The silence felt intentional. like a punishment meant to make me doubt myself. It didn't work. I went home and changed the locks. Not because I was afraid they'd come back, but because the house needed to reflect what had shifted. I filed updated documents, tightened boundaries I should have drawn years ago, and made it clear through Daniel that any future contact would go through him. A week later, my phone rang. It was my son. "I didn't expect you to go that far," he said. "I didn't expect you to ask me to disappear." I replied. He was quiet. Then, "So that's it. This is what's left." I said, "Respect or distance." He hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I sat at my kitchen table alone, no paperwork spread out, no voices pressing in, just quiet. I realized I hadn't taken anything from them. I had taken myself back. There's a lesson people don't talk about enough. Love doesn't require surrender. Family isn't measured by what you give up, but by what's protected on both sides. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're proof that you value your life. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps these stories reach people who need them. I turned off the light and locked the door from the inside. The house was still mine. More importantly, so was my peace.